This is my instant reaction to Skinamarink. Patience builds perseverance, perseverance character. I've just come out of a screening of a movie that made me a man of greater character because it was a taxing experience. It was a taxing experience that seems to want to test the boundaries of its audience's patience, and my patience was tested, and it was found wanting, but still yet I feel more refined by the fire than when I went in. Drink in hand, fresh from the theater. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason. I am a manager at the last video store in the universe. That video store is called Binge Movies. That is also the name of this podcast. I normally do ranking episodes with guest film critics, filmmakers, and film fanatics from around the world. When I'm not busy doing that, I'm busy creating original, unique, creative movie content over on Patreon, patreon.com/binge movies. When I'm not busy doing that, I'm going to the movie theater and I'm walking out of it and finding the nearest microphone I can. I beg the public on the streets and I go, Mister, give me a microphone. I got to tell the world about my thoughts. And then I record my instant reaction to movies that I see. On the main podcast, on these instant reactions, we cover the entire gamut of film, from the Tommy Wiseaus to the Bong Joon-ho's, and the Francois Truffaut's. We cover it all, baby. Normally I do light spoilers, a little bit of a break, and then some spoilers. In this case, I'm not going to do any spoilers for it other than the lightest of spoilers. You could probably hear by the tenor in my voice that I'm a little amped up tonight, and I will tell you why in minimal detail. First and foremost, here's what I would say. If you don't want any spoilers whatsoever, would I recommend Skinamarink? No, I would not, but I have a caveat. The caveat is, unless you're going to watch it at home in the dark, because the general public cannot be trusted with a movie like Skinamarink. And this very specific, very loosely, non-specifically, let me just put out there, Skinamarink is about two kids, presumably, two kids in a house, things get weird, and it's dark and disorienting for 90 minutes, give or take. Maybe an hour 45. That's an hour too long, probably an hour 25 minutes too long. What I would say is that Skinamarink is a 20-minute museum piece of experimental filmmaking that is pretending to be a horror movie. I like that sort of stuff. I have no problem going up to Cleveland to the MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, and sitting in an art installation for 10, 15, 20 minutes, watching something, going to the plaque beside the installation saying, oh, well, this is a film about this particular artist, their take on domestic child abuse or so forth and so on. And I say, oh, okay, that was very interesting. I don't expect it to have a plot. I don't expect it to be engaging on a character level or a narrative level because I understand the assignment, right? I understand when I walk into a certain place, into a certain atmosphere, to a certain environment, I understand what is required of me, of the viewer. Shudder or whoever's behind the marketing of this movie, marketing this as a horror film that's really spooky and scary, and oh my God, things are happening in the dark, and you should, oh, this is the new movie to go see, are doing this movie a disservice because I saw it in a jam-packed theater full of people, quite a few who left, quite a few who talked, one person who quite literally coughed and vomited in their own mouth, I think limited to their own mouth, very loudly. A very young child sitting next to me, like probably younger than the kid gangster from RoboCop 2, like way too young for a movie like this, just chomping on popcorn. That was to my left. Joker's to the left of me. And a man who didn't have Jimmy legs, he had Jimmy body. This man in a recliner, a leather recliner in a movie theater, when he wasn't busy sniffling and farting and doing and stinking of beef roast, he was shimmying and jimmying his body almost to the level of full contortions. At one point in the movie, I looked over because I thought maybe he was having an epileptic fit. And I said, okay, Jason, you can't be mad at this guy because he might be having a medical emergency. That's how restless he was in the chair. The general public is not fit for this kind of a thing because this movie is not about entertainment. This movie is not about scaring you. This movie is about dumping a bunch of aesthetics on top of each other, whether they make sense or not, and trying to be as weird as possible and saying, that's spooky. Isn't it spooky how weird everything is? No, it isn't. It's very taxing. It's very taxing on my nerves, and not in a good way, and nothing fucking happens. Somebody went to art school and is a theater major, and then somebody else went and saw the Blair Witch 1999 and thought the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie would be really good if it was 2 fucking hours long. That is Skinamarink. The movie takes place via title card in 1995. Everything else about the movie screams 1968 to 1977, somewhere in there. It is a movie that was clearly shot on digital because there's at least 2 shots in the movie that have motion smoothing or auto stabilization, right? Digital stabilization to them. And yet there is so much film noise and film grain and popping and cracking and shitty audio that's dumped on to make it as lo-fi and as analog as possible. And even the credits are done in a way that the credits would have been done no later than 1981. If this is taking place in 1995, why do we have 1970s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 16 millimeter film quality on a movie that takes place in 1995? It doesn't really make sense. All the camera angles are from the perspective or from the height level of basically small children who are more or less our main characters. You're going to be given their names and the most inane dialogue between them with about 15 minutes in between each line reading. This is a movie that happens in almost complete silence. And what the only light that is typically seen in the movie is coming from a CRT television, which is playing public domain cartoons, which are extremely shrieking. And there is the constant noise of the soundtrack of the post-converted film crackling, popping, you know the sound. And that's it. I got a physical, literal fucking headache watching this. And I had a guy go, retching. I had a kid munching. I had a body jimmying. I had 2 girls talking. I had people just restlessly rustling through everything that they could possibly own. Anything that would make noise. I think there were fuckers jingling change in their pockets. Who has change anymore? And the thing is, like, within the first 15 minutes of this movie, I wanted to get up and walk out because I knew what I was in for. I knew, because here's what I'm in for. I'm in for either the camera angles are angled at in a very every shot in this movie is angled into the most mundane / disorienting way possible. It's almost as if the camera was just shot like, oh, we're just going to have a 5-minute shot with droning noise, very low level drone. We're just going to pick up the ambient noise of a house at night, 1995. And it's going to be all grainy, and you're going to be seeing maybe the top of a lampshade, the corner of a room, like the corner of a ceiling, and maybe some shadows that are being cast. And then we're going to hyper zoom down into the carpet, and then you're going to see remnants of Legos. And we're just going to hard cut to establishing shots that are establishing disorientation. And that's the point. The point is that it's supposed to disorient us. It's supposed to put us in this unfamiliar perspective so that we feel like we don't know what's going on, so that so that everything's weird from the beginning, so that when shit gets real weird, we're already on edge and we feel disoriented. The entire movie is like it's almost like a film school exercise of how many different techniques can we use to get the audience to feel on edge. Here's the problem with this movie. The payoffs are few and far between, and they're not at all frightening. I was so starved for something of anything of any to any degree to happen in this movie that when the spooky thing happens, here, there, or yon, I was more relieved than scared. Finally, something is happening. I don't normally complain about this sort of stuff. Again, if I went to the museum and this was presented to me in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I would say that was interesting, kind of spooky. But to extend this into feature length, and even if you're going to choose to do this in such an experimental fashion, which props to the filmmakers for doing so, but if you're going to do it in an experimental fashion, you can still have establishing shots at weird fucking angles where we see a photo of the family hung up on the refrigerator, or we see artifacts of these people's lives around in these different shots, so that you can, the audience can then begin to kind of piece together a slight thumbnail sketch of who this family is and invest a little bit, because we started complete disorientation and we never really see anybody's face until their horrible things have happened to them, or presumably horrible things have happened to them. And because there's so many false starts and so much cinematic blue balls in this movie, we're never invested in anything. It's just fucking light, sound, and noise. That's all it is. That's all it is. And it's like, okay, here's what I would say. This movie, to its credit, requires an audience member to be engulfed in it. That you have to feel as if you are surrounded by the darkness. You're surrounded by these weird creaks and sounds and this shit that's happening in this room. That you feel that you were brought down to the level of a child and that you are engrossed in what's happening in the screen. That is the sort of suspension of disbelief that has to happen. And in that sense, I could see where this movie could be engaging. But having jump scares where you have a hard cut and there's a loud, shrieking, banging, clanging sound in your fucking face, and then hard cut to a creepy old public domain cartoon. I've seen this shit before. And this is where I'm like, this is the movie everybody is raving about. And I was excited. I was excited based on the recommendation of so many other people. And I'm just thinking, have you people not seen shitty horror movies before? Because that's what this is. This is a museum installation paranormal activity. You know, why? Who gives a shit? Who cares? Why are we pretending that this is like a revolutionary thing? But back to my point, I think because of the noisiness, restlessness, general mental illness of everybody fucking around me tonight, which I know I sound like such a miserable bastard. I promise I went in and like, okay, I'm Skinamarink-doo. I love you, Shudder. I'm so excited. I want to see this. I get to see a Shudder movie on the big screen. This is going to be good. And then a bunch of people showed up. I thought, okay, all right. And actually my anticipation was heightened because I'm like, this is the sort of movie you want to see with an audience, because if something spooky happens, then their fear may intensify my anxiety, my fear, and vice versa. We'll all be on the edge of our seat. Didn't happen. Everybody just sort of got antsy and irritated. I absorbed all that negative energy, and now here I am, antsy and irritated, jangling around ice cubes in a fucking cup and being miserable on the internet. Refreshment. What can I say? I think if you want to see this movie, I would say either go to an art house theater to see it, or go to, if you have one and it's showing it, because I think it's only in 600 or 800 theaters right now, and I don't know if it's going to go much beyond that. Your other option is if you have Shudder, which I do recommend you get Shudder. I think it's a pretty good streaming service if you like that kind of thing. I would say support it, especially because, things are a little bit dicey over at AMC, and that's the parent company that runs Shudder. I would say wait for Shudder on this one, and get yourself comfortable, get yourself in a silent room, get yourself in a place where you can mentally lock in, where you're not going to be tempted to look at your phone or this, that, or whatever, and really kind of yield and give yourself over to the film. I think if you do that, you will have definitely a better experience than I did, but you might have a better experience overall. And this movie hinges desperately on its ability to draw you into its vibe, for lack of a better term. It's milieu. And if you're an outside observer just looking at it, like I was, not oriented to the world of the film, but very firmly oriented to the world of me being in a movie theater, getting a increasingly rough headache. Maybe you'll like it, but whatever quote unquote magic this movie had, it did not work on me. I will probably never give it a second chance. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I'd say skip it. I was really miserable. It was a very miserable experience all the way around. Probably one of the worst movie theatrical experiences I've had in probably like 5 years. Like I've had some bad ones, but the movies have been able to overcome that. And, I've talked about that before on here, about some of the bad experiences that I've had, or at least things that in retrospect are sort of semi-comical or things, whatever. But this was at a whole different level. I couldn't wait to get out of the theater. I just could not wait. Within the first 10 minutes, I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And that doesn't happen to me. And that's the other thing, is this sort of movie is the sort of shit that's normally right up my alley. It just did not work for me at all. 2 out of 5 stars. Watch it on Shudder. Get Shudder. Because here's the thing. If you're going to spend $9, whatever, spend $9 for a month. Watch a bunch of stuff on Shudder. Find some obscure shit. Find some new shit. And I don't know, maybe do a deep dive into some Joe Bob back catalog and then cancel. But to say, hey, spend $11 to go see this experimental film in a room full of people who are more than likely going to be expecting the next Insidious, I think you're going to have a bad time. And I can't recommend you go to the theater and not have a good time. I just can't do it. Because, I don't know, eggs are like $9 now, right? I don't know that they're $9, but in certain places they are. I do know that like the Taco Bell Crave box, which is like $5, is now like getting close to 10. It's just beans and cheese and a tortilla 16 different ways. Like like Taco Bell is out of their mind. They're out of their mind. And here's how they're out of their mind. We didn't eat Taco Bell because it was worth the money. We ate Taco Bell because either we were drunk or we were broke. Or you're drunk and you're broke because you spent all your money at the bar and they're open at 2:00 in the morning. So now to be like, oh, well, it's going to be $9 for a fucking cheesy gordita crunch box. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. How many different things can you spread nacho cheese on? Not that many. A sure sign that things are trending in the wrong direction, though, is when Wendy's is like, we will put $15 worth of food in a bag for $5. Every time they bring out I forget what they call them, like the big value deals or whatever. Every time they bust that son of a bitch out, the economy's in a shitter. If you're a millennial, every time Wendy's is like, we'll give you a double cheeseburger, 10 spicy nuggets, fucking cookie. You want a little Frosty? We'll throw a little Frosty in there. You want some chili? Chili's 79 cents. Every time they do that, they're ahead of somewhere Punxsutawney Phil is getting ready to wake up from hibernation to tell us when spring's going to be here. It should be right around the corner, as will the new season of Binge Movies. And like clockwork, he sees his shadow. And like clockwork, Wendy from Wendy's is like, well, recession around the corner. Trying to bring out them biggie value meals. So, it's like $4 They'll give you like a shit ton of food, and meanwhile Taco Bell is like, we want $15 now for a Crunchwrap Supreme and a cold Doritos taco, where the grease is seeped through the bottom, and all the innards of the taco are in that weird little sleeve they put it in. How can I tie that together to my Skinamarink review? I can't. Until next time, binge on.